Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Eileen Dondero Foley City Council chambers for this City Council meeting, Monday, May 5th, 2008. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the City Clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Farini.
Here.
Assistant Mayor Blaylock.
Here.
Councilor Noveline Clayburgh.
Here.
Councilor Dwyer.
Here.
Councilor Smith.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Spear.
Here.
Councilor Reynolds.
Here.
Councilor Panalakis.
Here.
This time I'd like to ask you to rise and ask Councilor Kennedy to lead us in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening we have two presentations, briefly. The first is, one is not on the agenda, and it's about the Save the State House Committee. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, we have the USS New Hampshire Commissioning Group, Commander Michael Stevens, commanding officer of the USS New Hampshire, and Bruce Clark, chairman of the Commissioning Committee, and they're going to make a presentation. Gentlemen.
Good evening. As the mayor said, my name is Bruce Clark, chairman of the Commissioning Committee and also the president of the Navy League Portsmouth Council here in New Hampshire, who was underwriting this event. Wanted to brief you folks tonight. Portsmouth has been selected by the Secretary of the Navy after competing with two other sites as the location for the commissioning of the USS New Hampshire. Not only is it logical that the Navy Gold Standard New Hampshire shipyard have the honor, but it is thanks to Dover school children who will be included in the commissioning event that this submarine, the fifth in the Navy's new Virginia-class submarine fleet, is the new Navy ship to bear the New Hampshire name. The commissioning itself will be at 10 a.m. on Saturday, October 25th this year, just 5 short months away, taking place at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. So the purpose of this briefing is to let the community know we have been selected and that the commissioning committee is hard to work to make sure the event is outstanding for the officers and crew, the Secretary of the Navy who will attend, and other very important guests. The commissioning of the submarine New Hampshire fits in the long historical relationship between Portsmouth, the shipyard, and the Navy. We know Portsmouth and the John Paul Jones helped build the original Navy. The battleship New Hampshire was christened by Governor John McLean, who hosted the Portsmouth Peace Treaty negotiations at the shipyard for President Teddy Roosevelt. TR then gave the New Hampshire the honor of leading the Navy salute, welcoming home the Great White Fleet. And of course, the shipyard has played and continues to play a critical role in the history of the American submarine as the gold standard for work done on time and under budget. The commissioning ceremony is a high-profile, tradition-laden event for the United States Navy. It'll attract senior Navy officers, congressional representatives, the governor, special invited guests, and an estimated 8,000 to 10,000 visitors, including the crew and their families. One of our committees is working on crew hospitality right now. Another is working on fundraising to ensure a world-class commemoration. The impact on the city of Portsmouth, a national trust, distinctive destination, will be very positive. There has not been a similar event in the city for many years. It is difficult to exactly determine the impact of the increased number of visitors on city services, but I think we can expect a sizable crowd in Prescott Park, on Fortree Island, and throughout the city. There will also be increased vehicular traffic, which we will work to distribute throughout the city, using the Seacoast trolley to assist. The timing of the event between 10 and 11 a.m. in the morning is helpful, and upon dispersal, we anticipate that many visitors will make a day of it and enjoy the many wonderful offerings of the city itself. The commanding officer of the USS New Hampshire, Commander Mike Stevens, is here to tell you a little more about the ship, the time frame between now and October 25th, the crew and what they're looking forward at this event. But before I give him the floor, I want to welcome him by saying, just as the Seacoast community united in 2005 to save our shipyard, we know the community will enthusiastically extend the hospitality of Portsmouth, the Seacoast, and New Hampshire to the officers and crew of our namesake USS New Hampshire. Once again, we are in the spotlight, entrusted by a Navy who views our shipyard as the gold standard, to make this a gold standard commissioning ceremony. As the official host for the crew during the commissioning week and for the events leading up to that celebration, starting with representation at Market Square Day, we, the entire community, will make the USS New Hampshire welcome. With that, I'll turn it over to Commander Stevens to talk a little bit about his ship.
Thank you, Bruce. Commander?
Thank you, Bruce. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, citizens of New Hampshire. About 8 months ago, I requested from the Secretary of the Navy for the ship to be commissioned in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and just recently he approved that. It obviously is a logical choice, the USS New Hampshire being commissioned in her home state. But also I found it's a logical choice based on the people I've met up here so far in the second now visit and the enthusiasm shown for the commissioning. October 25th is just over 5 months off, and the 134 men who are under my command are anxious to get there. The shipyard is an arduous place to be, and we have about 2 more months before we head out on initial sea trials and acceptance testing. And then from there we do further sea trials through the month of August, and then spend most of the month of September and October just training up, underway, getting proficient. And then we'll pull in here probably just slightly before, a week before or less. Nominally the October 21st is when we'll pull in, and that date is obviously still to be determined. And we'll spend that day through the weekend and then probably into the next Monday here in the port. So I can't speak for the other 5,000 to 10,000 people who will show up, but I know my 134 men are anxious to come here with their families and spend a lot of money in Portsmouth. So.
Love it.
You like that part of it?
That's
okay,
great.
Good. That's good. Okay. So between then and now, we have a lot of challenges ahead of us, but it looks to be a very exciting ceremony. I went to the Texas commissioning in Galveston, which is somewhat similar in the sense that being the 5th ship, we'll be the 3rd to actually commission away from the builder's shipyard local area. And that presents some significant challenges for us as we not only move to build the ship and train the crew for underway operations, but also plan for this huge event distant from our home port. The one I saw in Galveston was immensely successful, but as Bruce pointed out, it was very difficult on the city in many ways, as so many people ended up in a location where they don't end up typically at an hour, they don't end up typically. And that was further complicated by the fact that the First Lady was there, so traffic was incredibly insane as they tried to route it on and off the island and also protect her. I don't think we're going to face that particular challenge, but who knows in the end what dignitaries will finally show up. So I do know from firsthand experience that it's an exciting ceremony. It's also challenging. We look forward to it, and I think this is just a great place for us to end up in the fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commander. I'd also like to ask Bruce, and again, we're all very excited about this. Bruce, if you could just recognize for us your committee members who were present so that everybody will know who was on the committee. Some names I remember, 1 or 2 I do not, so I'm going to let you do it.
Sitting here on the end is the Vice Chairman of the committee, Mr. Doug Bates, who you probably know as the President of the Greater Chamber of Commerce. Of Commerce here in Portsmouth. Right behind Doug is Renee Rydell, who is our social co-chairman. And Renee will take and work on all the events leading up to the commissioning itself, the receptions and the dinners, etc. Renee is the Vice President of Marketing for a TWO International Group. And over here is Stephanie Secourt. Stephanie is our co-chair for information and also for crew activities. And as the informational director, she also will be working on a website that we're going to be setting up very quickly so that we can keep the community informed of what will be going on here. There is another gentleman that is not here tonight, a commander, Bob Normando, who is in charge of our gifts. And then we have two co-chairmen that are actually resident on the shipyard. One lady is named Marty Raymond, and another one is named Stephen Beauvais. And they have been assigned full-time responsibility taken from their present job and dedicated to the commissioning of USS New Hampshire. So we have a crew a commissioning standing tall. They're ready to go, and things are really starting to cook here.
Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing Commander Stevens, his crew, and families, and so forth here in October. John?
I think
Doug is passing out an information sheet.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
But
Ned.
I guess if we have
Our
a
own
moment,
Coast Guard officer here. No rivalry intended, I'm sure.
we'll have you covered as you're coming in.
Thanks.
Yeah, Commander, I noted that when in your remarks, you said that you had requested and that the Secretary of the Navy had ultimately granted, the request to have the USS New Hampshire commissioned in the state of New Hampshire. Does that mean it's the position of the U.S. Navy that the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard is, in fact, in the state of New Hampshire?
I was warned that I could be put on this spot, and I've been given a
We have some
very
members of the press in
careful
attendance.
line to stick to, which is I can't comment on that.
I understand.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
sir.
very much. Noted. Thank you. At this time, not on your agenda that you have out there, but I was able to ask Dave Engel, who's the chair of the Save the State House Committee, and some committee members are going to be here this evening, and I wanted to make sure that we honored them for their years of service. We're going to have, I'd like to ask Dave to come forward, and I just want to talk a little bit about the committee, then ask Dave to say a few words. And then we typically honor our committee people in October or November, and we give mayor's awards at that time. So that's not our purpose this evening, but our purpose this evening is to recognize the hard work of the committee, and it's reaching the end of the line in terms of its efforts. You should all know, those of you who have been around a while may not know, some of you may. This was constituted by Evelyn Sorrell, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, on August 31, 1998. So it's been 10 years in the making, and a lot of hard work has been done. The individuals who served on the committee, to the best of our knowledge that we have here, were Dr. Dorothy Vaughn, Honorary Member James Garvin of the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Attorney David Engel, still with us today, Denny O'Toole, then from Strawberry Bank, Peter Weeks, Lee Roberts, State Senator Bert Cohen, former State Senator Elaine Krasker, Ambassador to Sister Cities Eileen Foley, City Councilor Harold Whitehouse, State Representative and City Council Laura Penelakis, Historic District Commission Member David Adams, Historic District Commission Member and City Councilor Joanne Grasso, still on the board today, Planning Board Member John Sullivan, J. Dennis Robinson, Patricia Foss, Bruce Dicker, and Duncan McCallum. And today, our committee members, last appointed in 2001, were Jackie Callie Pitts, Martha Fuller Clark, Dave Engel, Eileen Foley, William Gindell, John Lyons. I think we've got everybody. Robert Padian and Ann Walker. I think we've listed everyone and maybe named some of them twice. The mission of that committee was to rescue the portion of the surviving New Hampshire State House and restore the building to its colonial era elegance on a suitable site in the city. And we've not been able to, that has not been accomplished, but many, many other things have been accomplished. Their goals were to preserve and restore the State House, to make an orientation around the State House so that people would know where it was, and we've done that. There's been a lot of education that's been done, and they've advocated for the position of saving the State House. And I'd like to ask David to come forward and say a few words. And David has a gracious offer to the city that he has agreed to make, and if he would be kind enough, we'd like to have him come forward before we thank everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The reason we're here primarily tonight is I was able to get constructed, and you've seen it out here, of course, in the foyer, for some time, of the State House. I would like to put the State House on indefinite loan to the city, where many people could see it. It does not appear as though we're going to be able to reconstruct the State House in its original configuration. But at least for many generations to come, the citizens of Portsmouth and the area will know what it did look like. And so it's my suggestion, which obviously is up to the members of the board of the library, as well as you, but we would like to have the city council and the library consider accepting as a permanent loan from us. My wife and I are the ones that actually paid for the construction, so that many people in the city for generations can see it. And it's in, as you know, a container, so that it should last so many years without a deterioration. So that's our thoughts for tonight to present to the City Council, and we have, as the Mayor said, a number of the members of the committee here, and so without further ado, I would make that recommendation, and hopefully you'll consider it, and that we could, if the city, if the committee of the library accepts it, which I understand from Ann is pretty much a foregone conclusion, we would like to have it there for everybody to see. So that's our thoughts.
Thank you again. Could I ask the committee members who are here to stand? We'll recognize you, and we thank you for 10 years of hard work. Next on the agenda.
Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Yes, Council
Please
Smith.
suspend the rules for the purposes of taking a motion to accept it.
Motion to suspend. Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Do you have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we graciously accept this as a permanent part of us, and hopefully we can get it over to the library if it's accepted by the library committee.
Second.
We have a second. It's conditional language. I think all bases are covered. Is everyone comfortable with the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Smith. Now we'll move on to the public comment. I'm sorry, motion to accept the minutes would be in order, or motion and then perhaps changes.
So move to accept the minutes?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor? Of approval?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Now I'd like to open the public comment session. As you know, you are given 3 minutes to speak on the subject of your choice. In this case, we have 3 individuals, all of them well-known and used to the rules, and welcome here as always. We have our first speaker of the evening, and I'd like you to give your address, but if you could come forward. Our first speaker of the evening is Harold Decker. Mr. Decker. City business.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is not for the councilors. You can take a rest, or for the city clerk. This is for Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Bohinko. I've had a problem for quite a few years. I know that Mr. Parkinson called me today, John. Every year I've got the same problem, water. Water runs downhill, we all know that. I'm on the low end of West Road, water country, and the foundation, seacoast. It used to dry up in the summer, not anymore, okay. I cut down usually a dozen trees every year because they're killed by water. Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Holden both been out to my property, so they're sort of familiar with it. I've been banged a little bit for using wetlands, but I'm not creating the wetlands. Oh, let me see. My property's getting more waterlogged all the time. Now, I don't own the property in question where the problem is arising, because if I did, I'd take care of it. I'd solve the problem. I solve the problem just like that, but I can't. I don't really know who owns the problem. The problem is that the beavers are damming up the property, and the beavers are the best engineers there are in this world. It's their food, it's their home, it's their fun, and it's their work. So that's all they do. I don't know who is responsible for this, whether it's the city, the railroad, or the Fish and Game, but I would like to have it taken care of, or I would like a letter, or maybe Mr. Sullivan can do some research and tell me who is responsible, because I am willing to spend the money to sue whoever it is to get the problem taken care of. I will spend the money. I'm cheap. I don't want to spend the money, but I will spend the money to do that. Right now, I've got 2 sump pumps in each of 5 buildings. 2 sump pumps in each of 5 buildings to make sure that I don't flood out. I also have a diesel-powered generator in each building to take care of it in case the power goes off. I'm tired of that. I don't want any more of that. I don't want to come down here and bug Mr. Bohinko. He does a good job. Mr. Sullivan does a good job. But somehow, you've got to help me. I want to know who's responsible for the problem so that I can deal with it. Thank you, Bob. I would like a letter from someone so that I can take action on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ecker. Our next speaker this evening is Russ Grazier regarding ArtSpeak.
Good evening, Russ Grazier, 504 Mill Street of Portsmouth. I'm here representing ArtSpeak this evening, and I spoke 2 weeks ago before the council, so I don't think there's a lot of detail I need to go into tonight, but I just wanted to speak briefly at the beginning of the evening to ask you to please support the allocation of $20,000 of Urban Development Action Grant funds for the coming year for ArtSpeak. It was a year ago that this was first done for ArtSpeak, and it had a significant impact in the ability and the interest of the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation in matching that money with another $20,000 to help us leverage the funds for further grant funding for many projects done to implement the cultural plan and master plan of the City of Portsmouth. We're looking forward to the future now and not just celebrating what we've been able to accomplish. And there are many projects coming down the line. The implementation of the recently approved public art ordinance with new municipal facilities and reconstructions that will be happening, the enhancement of the Market Street extension, the review of what will be happening with the McIntyre block, things like this that will be coming down the road. So I don't want to take up a lot of your time tonight, but this allocation will have a significant impact on the effectiveness of ArtSpeak and the ability of ArtSpeak to really pursue and leverage its funds for greater grant funding continuing on in the future. We've had a wonderful track record, I believe, and we showed you that 2 weeks ago, and we continue to work forward with this, and this will be a huge help for us. So I will remain this evening, so if you have any questions when this comes before you, I will be here, but thank you very much for considering this. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. And our final speaker this evening, Ellen Feinberg, also regarding ArtSpeak.
Good evening. I'm Ellen Feinberg, and I live at 75 Aldrich Road. I'm here actually to present a letter from Selena Adams, Senior Program Officer from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. She regrets not being able to be here herself this evening, but she had a conflicting meeting. So this letter is from Selena. To the Honorable Mayor, Tom Farini, and the Portsmouth City Council. Please accept this letter on behalf of ArtSpeak the City Cultural Commission as a sign of our support for its request for the fiscal year 2008-2009 funding. Since its founding in 2002, ArtSpeak has served as a powerful example of what can come to fruition when private and public institutions partner to benefit their communities. As early as 2000, the Charitable Foundation, recognizing the values of our community's arts and cultural heritage, used its Art Builds community funds to support the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee on Arts and Culture. It was during that process, which engaged stakeholders from every part of our community, that the idea of a cultural commission was born. Over the years, support from the city and from the Charitable Foundation donors has allowed ArtSpeak to refine its mission and to build its reputation as an organization that helps to secure our rich quality of life by advancing on behalf of artists as well as arts and cultural organizations in the Seacoast community. While ArtSpeak accomplished much of its early years with a dedicated all-volunteer board, the hire of Sue Cobbler, the ArtSpeak coordinator, has truly catapulted the organization toward a remarkable record of achievement in 2007. I am certain that others will recite this long list of achievement tonight. As Portsmouth continues to change and grow, ArtSpeak will continue to be an important voice in our city. The continued vibrancy of our home, where so many wish to live, work, and visit, is at the core of ArtSpeak's work. Now, more than ever, it is imperative to ensure they remain on solid footing. As the Charitable Foundation considers an operating grant proposal submitted by ArtSpeak for 2008-2009, we hope the city will continue to partner with us to secure the future of this critical community organization. Thank you for your consideration, Selena Adams, Senior Program Officer. And if it's acceptable, I will pass out copies of her letter to you.
If you could, if you hand it to us, we'll make sure that it gets distributed and put in the record. Thank you. That closes the public comment session. At this time, we'll move on.
Connor?
Yes.
Would you be amenable to a motion to suspend the rules?
We have a motion to suspend the rules. Do we have a second?
Second.
To take out.
The purpose of the
For
motion?
the purpose of taking the item having to do with ArtSpeak funding, which is under the city manager's items, out of order.
I think that would be Roman numeral A.
It's 11A.
A1.
A1. There we go. We have a motion. We know what we're here about. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we're going to need a motion on the funds, the UDAG funds themselves.
Your Honor, what I have is a memorandum in your packet that describes what was just described to you by Russ Grazier. There is also a full summary of programs and funding that they have been able to receive over the last few years, and at this point would put it before the City Council for your action.
We're going to need a motion before we have discussion. Councilor Noveline Clayburgh.
I would like to make a motion that the City Council approve the request for $20,000 from the city's UDAG funds to partially cover the labor costs for delivery of ArtSpeak services.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Councilor Reynolds. Discussion. Councilor Dwyer.
What I'm going to speak to is maybe a slight amendment to that motion. And it's partly because, while I agree that UDAG funds are a very appropriate source for community development of this nature, we have a lot of requests for use of UDAG funds. We have a lot of other groups that are actively seeking our support for the use of UDAG funds. And in thinking about, and giving, I think, the argument of why ArtSpeak or why some other group, we have to think carefully about that as counselors. And it seems to me the reason why ArtSpeak is appropriate for UDAG funds is because there is the potential, especially given the structure of ArtSpeak, to bring in additional funds to the city. So to leverage additional funds for community development is a really important reason why we should choose to give ArtSpeak UDAG funds where we don't necessarily agree to give other groups UDAG funds. To that end, though, and in the fairness to other groups that have been coming to us lately, I think it would be appropriate to guarantee a certain portion to ArtSpeak for UDAG funds, but have the remainder be matching funds for what ArtSpeak brings in. So to sort of incentivize the continued work of leveraging funds from other sources to bring them into the city. So
I think what we will do, without me being so formal as to invoke Rule 9 and request that it be written, we should probably get it to a fairly specific amendment. And so if you're going to move an amendment, do you want to have a stab at it, or?
Sure.
Okay.
I would amend Councilor Clayburgh's proposal to be that we approve $10,000 from the city's UDAG funds and match dollar for dollar outside money brought in up to another $10,000
From UDAG.
from UDAG funds.
And brought in by ArtSpeak.
Brought in by ArtSpeak.
I don't think we need
New
to
monies.
parse that one anymore. Everybody comfortable with the motion? Or the amendment, rather? We have a second discussion. Councilor Reynolds.
Sort of a question. I mean, I note that the nature of the request is that the city contribute $20,000 towards the approximately $80,000 annual budget. So are you talking about other money?
Formalizing
Councilor Dwyer, you're the maker of the amendment. Do you care to respond?
that. Just formalizing that going forward, that, for example, if the charitable fund does grant $20,000, there'd be obviously no difficulty. We would grant the match.
Okay,
So-
so within, assuming that they will raise the remaining 60 of their annual operational budget, then no sweat, they'll get our.
I'm not really thinking about their operational budget because we're just worried about what are we taking out of UDAG funds. So I'm sort of saying let's guarantee 10,000 and then let's incentivize the rest so that for each dollar brought in above that in new monies, could be charitable fund, could be something else beyond the 10,000, we would give up to another 10,000 from UDAG funds.
Okay, additional clarity, question responded to, further discussion. Councilor Noveline Clayburgh.
I had several conversations with board members about this vote that we would take tonight, and I know from my experience in fundraising for nonprofits, and I think ArtSpeak has done this. You know, they've raised money and they've obtained grants in the past, but unfortunately, that money tends to dry up after you're in operation for a year or two or three, whatever. You know, the grant money kind of dries up. So I think their reason for asking for this, and I don't know if it's appropriate to ask them to respond, is that they feel that the grant money is kind of drying up a little bit, so that to get this $20,000 from the city was going to be a real help to them. And you know, they are going to raise $80,000 total. $20,000 of it will come from the city, you know, if that's approved. So I'm a little confused about that. I don't know if someone could comment on that, but that was the understanding I got from the conversations I had with people on the phone.
Councilor Dwyer, it's in the nature of a question. Do you care to respond?
Well, and I wouldn't say it would have to be grant monies. It can be private donations, as was done for Art Overnight. It can be corporate sponsorships. It can be money from the charitable fund. It can be grant monies. I just want to I think the distinction is that one reason why we support ArtSpeak over some of the other groups that have come to us this year and asked for money from the same source is because ArtSpeak is bringing in additional dollars.
I think Councilor Dwyer's point, just a point of clarification for everyone, that the idea is that it's from any source, that's a legitimate source, of course, but any source, and I think it makes, perhaps Councilor Dwyer's amendment, if she'll allow me the liberty, is making a policy statement that we want to enhance and incent additional fundraising, and this motion would conceivably have that result. Councilor Reynolds.
Well, just another point. Actually, Councilor Dwyer, when you articulated at first your the rationale that why we should consider ArtSpeak as opposed to another. For UDAG money, you said they bring in other money to the city. I actually thought you were referring to the enormous sums of money that are brought into the city by our art and cultural events that ArtSpeak meant. So I was thinking sort of the second level of bringing in additional money, and I was just thinking, hey, $20,000 is I bet we get a pretty good return on that investment already. So I think it's both a fair point, the way that you're making the motion, but I think also so that people understand out there, why would the city put 20,000 taxpayer dollars? We've heard from the Americans for the Arts.
Just a point of clarification, it's federal taxpayer dollars, not local City of Portsmouth taxpayer dollars.
There we go.
For the record.
It's not even our money. So,
well, it is.
So we'll just reallocate it, and it'll bring in millions in terms of tourism dollars and stature to the city.
Okay. Now, we've had some discussion on this. Is there a need for further discussion? Looking around.
Is it appropriate to ask someone from ArtSpeak to address the question? I mean, do they feel...
We need a motion to suspend the rules. Do you care to move to suspend the rules for the purpose of having someone from ArtSpeak speak?
I would like to suspend the rules to have someone from ArtSpeak speak.
To this issue. We have a motion. Say that fast, and then your ArtSpeak speak a lot. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Russ, if you'd be so kind.
To address your question directly, Councilor Kleberg, it's not so much an issue of grant funding drying up or anything like that. It specifically has to point to the fact that our ArtSpeak, unlike other organizations within the community, is an outgrowth of a city council initiative, the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee on Arts and Culture. It's an outgrowth of the cultural plan, and the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation has invested a lot of money over the past 5 years in supporting ArtSpeak's operations, and to have the city in one way support or to strongly support ArtSpeak's operations is very important at this stage of the game for a lot of our funders. The other aspect is a majority of the money that we do raise through grants is specific project-based funds. Operational funds are a much different matter as far as fundraising. And anyone who's ever been involved with nonprofit fundraising does understand that operational grants are hard to come by and far and few between. That said, we have applied for an operational grant from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. It will not cover all of our operating costs, but it will help just as the UDAG funds would help us. And, finally, just to say that it's just one aspect that makes us that much more viable for the grant money. We made ArtSpeak. The decision was made to have ArtSpeak become a 501c3 nonprofit, so it would be eligible for grant funding for specific projects. It's projects coming down the road, just as projects that we've already done. So the project funding is easier to come by. It's not the grants drying up. It's specifically having to do with the operational costs, and the city really showing the grantors, who like the National Endowment for the Arts, the State Council for the Arts, that the city is truly invested in this, not just saying they're invested, but they're making an investment in the organization's operational funds. That's going to make a big difference in bringing in those other outside grants.
Russ, how do you feel about the amendment?
That's a good question. Well, I understand Councilor Dwyer's point that it does show the community that an organization that's bringing in funds that directly affect the implementation of the master plan is being matched by funds from Urban Development Action Grant, which is a very appropriate use of it. Personally, the ArtSpeak board has a wonderful cast of volunteers from all throughout the community who work very, very hard. And I think that in many ways, over the years, they've proven themselves and would continue to prove themselves. And I don't think that it's going to really have a major impact either way, other than sending a message to someone like maybe the Charitable Foundation or other people and I think the Charitable Foundation's been saying the message. They want to see the city step up and match. So I don't know how much back and forth is going to go on because of something like this, but I'm not opposed to it, but I don't know that it's absolutely necessary.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate you letting us put
Thank you for your time.
Councilor, he's still present for questioning if you wish. Otherwise, we can go back to discussion. So first, I would ask if there are any additional questions for Russ. If there are none, the rules have been suspended, but we can also now continue with our discussion on the amendment. Councilor Spear.
I'd support the original request with or without the amendment because of their track record. But the amendment does bring up a nice idea regarding policy, future requests that have been mentioned, and I think it affords us a nice opportunity right now with a group that has a proven track record that would be able to easily match the $10,000. And so this is an opportunity to start this going forward. And so for that reason, I'll support the amendment.
Thank you, Councilor Spear. Additional discussion? Hearing none, are we ready to call the question?
Call the question.
Well, now this is the question on Councilor Dwyer's amendment. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. So now we have the question in chief as amended. I guess we voted on that. I guess we don't need to
No, you have to pass the main motion
We
as
need to pass the
amended.
main motion as amended. So I'm corrected by the city clerk. Noted. So we need to pass the main motion as amended. The motion is on the floor now that the other has been acted upon. Discussion? Councilor Spear.
I had a question. I don't know. I'll ask the city manager, maybe other people on the council. I saw some of the activities that they're going to be doing. They mentioned Islington Street, the public library, and other opportunities for art. But I didn't see anywhere the middle school being brought up as an opportunity for art. And in relation to that question, last year, did the council pass a 1% for art ordinance? And does that tie in at all with the middle school project?
Yes.
And how does ArtSpeak tie in with that effort? So it's kind of a
We'll accept-
unformed question, but I'm curious.
That's a point of order, in fact, just to get a point out since we're all here, if the city manager cares to address it.
Well, there is a ordinance that does reflect the amount of money that would go from a bonding project for art and on that particular project or into a trust for art. Certainly, with the fire station, for instance, we work very closely with ArtSpeak and will work very closely with them. I assume, and by virtue of your question tonight, I assume that the school department will work, or I stand corrected, the joint building committee will work very closely with ArtSpeak to talk about some of the art within the middle school.
That's noted for that point of order. Since I get to appoint that committee, I'll make sure that those that are going to serve keep that in mind. Additional questions? Discussion? Council Norberlin Claiborne.
Based on what Russ Grazier just said, I will support the motion with the amendment. I feel comfortable that he feels that the organization can handle the challenge of matching funds, so I will vote for it.
Okay, further discussion? Ready to call the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, unless I get another motion to suspend.
Just move forward.
Well, Council, Assistant Mayor.
Motion to suspend the rules to take up item 11A, 2 and 3.
A succinctly worded motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Appreciate the courtesy for those present.
The first item, Your Honor, is an item, report back regarding Wamisit Place. As you recall, at the April 21st meeting, City Council voted to refer the Portsmouth Housing Authority's letter dated April 15th to the CDBG Advisory Committee to report back. The CDBG Citizen Advisory Committee met on April 24th to review the matter. As indicated in the letter from PHA, the city provided $300,000 in federal community development block grant funds to the PHA to assist the agency in purchasing Ridgeway Apartments, now Wamisit Place. Per the 1989 agreement between the PHA and the city, the PHA must repay the greater of $300,000 or 6% of the sale price if the ownership of the property changes. In that, the PHA is now initiating a major renovation of this housing facility. The refinancing taking place triggers a change in ownership and therefore repayment. 6% of the $7.5 million sale price of this facility would mean that PHA would repay $450,000 per the 1989 agreement. In its April 15th letter to the City Council, the PHA is requesting the city accept the repayment of the original $300,000 provided by the city as full repayment of the lesser amount. And this will facilitate the very costly renovation of Wamisit Place. And as I indicated at their meeting of April 24th, the CDBG Citizens Advisory Committee discussed the City Council's referral regarding this matter. Input was provided by the Executive Director for the Housing Authority, Joe Kuchar, and Jack Peduzzi of Northern New England Housing Investment Fund, the PHA's consultant on this project. They indicated that the funding for this much-needed rehabilitation project was very tight. They also said that the restrictions put in place by funding sources being used to renovate Wamsett Place will require these housing units remain affordable to families earning 60% or less of the median income for a 99-year period. The CDBG Citizens Advisory Committee voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council accept the repayment of $300,000 as full repayment of the terms of the 1989 agreement, because this action would permit the $150,000 otherwise due to be used to facilitate the proposed renovation of Wamsett Place and help maintain the affordability and quality of these 100 apartments for families. And there's a motion before you to accept the CDBG Advisory Committee's report back and authorize me to take actions necessary to implement that recommendation.
The city manager has offered the report and effectively subsumed within his report the report back from the CDBG Citizens Advisory Committee. He has even outlined what the motion would be. Does anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have discussion? Councilor Reynolds.
Mr. Mayor, this sounds like a terrific way to go forward, and I'm very pleased. I'll be supporting the motion. But I would like to take this opportunity. I asked a question at the meeting where we first discussed this and made the referral, and I would just like to again encourage, and I'll even offer, to meet with Mr. Kuchar and the board of PHA at any time and in any way they want. I would really like to see Wamsett Place and then all of our public housing evolve in the direction that the whole city is going in terms of sustainability. And that's a very important issue, that sustainability is not just for the rich, it's not just green, for people who can afford it, sort of fancy design, but it's actually also a matter of fiscal responsibility. And I would really like to see this project, it looks like a tremendous opportunity, go do a lot in terms of taking advantage of every possible cost-effective opportunity for energy efficiency and even use of renewable energy going forward, because of course that reduces the operating costs going forward and can take pressure off the budget. We all know that the budget item that goes up fastest, much more than inflation every year, is energy costs. So if we can make these apartments, and it also goes to comfort and quality of life for the residents, and if we can make Wamsett Place a showcase of energy efficiency and renewable in Portsmouth, I just think that would be a great thing. So,
thank you, Councilor Reynolds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Your Honor, the next item deals with the Portsmouth Housing Authority as well, and it's a lease of the Lafayette School. What I'd like to do is I'd like to turn this matter over to the city attorney to walk you through some of the salient points of the proposed lease.
Attorney Sullivan.
This concept obviously addresses the Lafayette School. It is modeled, the proposal is modeled in many ways on the 1895 building, which has been successful here on this campus. The lease terms that are being proposed tonight are not yet actually in any negotiated form. If the City Council approves of what we're talking about at this point, then the City Manager will be going forward negotiating and executing a long-term ground lease, perhaps as long as 99 years, for the Lafayette School. The school alone, I might add, not the land around it, which will remain city property. The arrangement will be that for that long term, the City of Portsmouth will lease to an entity called the Lafayette School Senior Apartments Limited Partnership the building. All improvements within the building will be the responsibility of the lessee of that partnership, as will be certain improvements to the city land surrounding the building relating to parking and landscaping, et cetera. The property tax arrangement for the Lafayette School, currently, of course, it's not being taxed at all. The property tax arrangements would be similar to the 1895 arrangement, but structured somewhat differently, based upon valuation rather than tax rate. It is probably fair to conclude that the amount that will be paid as a payment in lieu of tax will be approximately 50% of what the building would have paid for taxes if it were in private ownership. There will be a construction management plan for traffic safety and public safety during the construction process. Once the building is in operation, all responsibility inside the building will be with the lessee and none with the city. There will be shared public parking around the building. This is the anticipation of the lease. Trash disposal will be at curbside, with building employees bringing trash disposal and recyclables out, pick up by the city. Utilities, insurances, and et cetera will all be the responsibility of the lessee of the partnership we discussed. The document, as I said, is not negotiated to final form, and if the City Council has any questions about any of these elements or wishes to raise any other issues with regard to what that lease should say, we have the opportunity to do that now. Other than that, the request would be that the City Council authorize the City Manager to negotiate and execute that lease in accordance with the terms just discussed.
Your Honor, and if I might just conclude with Bob's remarks, this is a project that we've been working on for about 10 years to try to find some use that will be accommodating to the neighborhood. We believe we found that use. In addition, we wanted to have a use that could be compatible to the park and not encroach on the park, and we found that. This project is very tight from a financial standpoint, and we've been advised by the executive director at Israel tight. So we believe that the terms of this lease, which will be pretty much the same as the Cottage Hospital, are in the best interest of the city at this time.
Okay, we've had our presentation. Before we engage in discussion, we'll need a motion.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move to authorize the city manager to negotiate and take other actions necessary to execute a lease between the city and the Lafayette School Senior Apartments Limited Partnership for the lease of Lafayette School for use as 10 units of senior housing.
Second.
We have a motion, duly seconded. Discussion. Council Dwyer.
A question, Bob, in terms of a term in the lease of how affordability, what language around affordability, or how is affordability guaranteed in the lease?
It's going to be done by reference to federal regulation. And probably somebody from the Housing Authority could answer this question.
We have a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Peduzzi.
Thank you. There will be the limited partnership agreement and documents that are going to be signed with the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority will stipulate that 7 of the units have to be rented to families or seniors whose income is 50% or less of median area income, with the remaining 3 to 60% or less of median area income. And there's a land use restriction agreement that memorializes that for 99 years.
Council Dwyer.
And then how is senior defined here? Is it over 55 or
62 or older.
62 or older.
Council Kennedy.
When I was out campaigning, one of the things that people had a concern about was senior housing and its relationship to Portsmouth citizens versus other citizens outside of Portsmouth. And I was wondering, is there any parameters on that, or is there anything that you can do? But I understand federal laws and you might not be able to, but maybe you could state it for the community.
Well, legally, you can't really say that the first preference has to go to Portsmouth residents. But on the other hand, the Portsmouth Housing Authority has a long, long waiting list of seniors who have been on that list for a long time, and I would expect that they would be drawing from that list first.
Additional questions? Council Nolan Clayburgh.
Thank you. Has the neighborhood been involved in the process here with the plans for the building?
Well, the Portsmouth Advocates, local historic agency, we've kept them informed to what we're doing. We've invited them into the building when we've had architects and the state Department of Historical Resources has come to the property. So we've involved people in that way. And also we've just made it known to the public what we were doing. And so we have had input in that sense.
Additional inquiries, questions?
No, I just wanted to.
You ready to talk about the motion, or do you have a question?
I don't have a question for him.
Well, just 1 second, Laura.
Okay.
Council Penelakis, any other questions for individuals while we have the rules suspended? Okay, thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Council Penelakis, discussion on the motion.
Yes, I'd just like to thank the Portsmouth Housing Authority for taking this on. If we have as good a result as we have at the cottage over there, it would have been, almost 20 years this has been working. So I thank them for that.
Thank you, Councilor Penelakis. Additional, Councilor Spear.
Can you explain how the parking works? The lease term is just for the building. Then what's the parking arrangement with the city, and how does that work?
It will have to be an approved site plan to develop parking, which will be shared between the residents of the building and the public in general. It's not.
It'll come before the planning board.
So will the parking spaces be reserved for the lessee?
There probably will be, I would suspect, 10 parking spaces reserved for the residents, and then probably remaining parking for people visiting the park. We also have to remember, right now, the parking is hodgepodge over there anyways, and so a lot of people utilize the street, which is a wide street. It has ability to park there, so we expect that, that will maintain.
Very good. The Assistant Mayor.
Just a comment. I recall seeing a letter from the neighborhood organization in Lafayette School that was in favor of this with certain conditions which have all been met.
Additional questions or comments? Councilor Kennedy.
And just for the public, from what I'm reading here, is there will be no local funds going into this?
The only funds that will be going into this, there will be some CDBG money, but no local funds.
Thank you.
Further inquiry, discussion, questions, argument, advocacy, anything? Move the question from Councilor Smith. So we'll do that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Come back to grants.
Now we go back, but we're ahead. Thank you. Grants and donations. Item A, acceptance of a community development block grant. This is the big one that we get. We would need a motion to accept this, and the amount of the grant is $646,806. Do you care to speak to this briefly, John?
No, this is typically what we do every year. We accept it as part of your budget. The Citizens Advisory Committee has vetted this very thoroughly, and there are a lot of restrictions within how you can spend your money under the federal requirements. We did provide you with a spreadsheet that shows how the money is being spent.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Councilor Dwyer.
I find this budget really hard to read.
That's because it's in federal form.
Great answer from the city manager.
Would you translate for me? Because I'm glad.
Certainly.
So we're accepting the money in the first column.
Correct.
What's the second column?
These are encumbered funds from entitlement grants from prior years.
Okay, and then what's the rest of it?
Money that is already been in a revolving loan fund, which is currently, it speaks for itself, revolving. The projected program income, which is, again, money that is a program in nature. And the PEDLIP is money that, again, is money that's already prior year but set aside. And finally, maybe I can ask Cindy what the acronym on the last paragraph, the last column is.
And PEDLAP, if she doesn't mind.
PEDLIP, yeah. Portsmouth Economic Development Loan Program.
Okay.
Just in a nutshell, we have 3 revolving loan funds. Housing rehab, money we lend out, 0% in low-interest loans. Those get repaid over time for housing rehab. Portsmouth Economic Development Loan Program is PEDLIP. Again, that was money that was lent out. There are still a few loans making repayments. We're not doing any new loans, but there's still loans being repaid. And then the third one is Portsmouth Nonprofit Loan Program. Again, we have about 5 loans out to various places like the Housing Partnership when they rehab their offices, et cetera. And that money comes back in and then gets plowed back into any CDBG eligible program.
So is it correct to read the total, the 1 million, as what is this year available with the grant that we're accepting?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is in your budget as well, I believe.
Correct.
Very good.
Thank you. Additional questions, clarifications, Councilor Reynolds?
Yeah, maybe, I guess sort of a question. You mentioned in your remarks, John, that all of this, we have a advisory committee in the city that
Correct.
does this. And is it possible for us to name those folks right now? I think it's clearly, it's
I
one of the
think
good
I
piece
don't
of
have
work that
their.
they do.
Do you have?
I know,
the
I should have
names
my
up the
list
top
too.
of the-
Cindy,
they are
can we just
listed.
thank the people that have done this?
Shall we provide that to you?
Oh, yeah, no, you always.
Nancy Emerson is the
You do,
chair
we always
of
have the
that.
list.
Why don't we
mean to put
provide that
anybody
to
on
you
the
in your
spot,
next
but-
meeting?
Then let's just thank in toto the volunteers we have on this advisory committee.
Noted for the
Good
record,
piece of
thank you,
work.
Councilor Reynolds. Additional, we thank them for their fine work. Additional comments or discussion? Hearing none, move the question or call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Next, we move to item B under approval of grants and donations, acceptance of police department donations, retired gym equipment from John Parker, police honor guard from P.L. Cashman in the amount of $30, police explorers from W.B. and P.A. Holt, $50, police explorers from J.M. and B.M. Mulkern, $25, and in the Crime Stoppers to Citizens Police Academy, $6,216.40. A motion would be in order to approve and accept the donations.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Next is item C, acceptance of a donation from Dan Fenderson of Subway of a 4-table chair assembly for use in the Vaughn Hall stage area of a value of $4,500. Does the city manager care to briefly address that?
There's
So
a
that people-
pictures in your packet. It basically shows the type of table it is. It's more durable than the tables that are out there, and there will be no advertising on any of the umbrellas or anything that might be out there.
Thank you for the clarification. We need a motion to approve and accept the donation as
So
listed.
moved, Your Honor.
We have a
Second.
motion. We have a second. Discussion. Council Kennedy?
In this, when I was looking at this, I was wondering, is this something, a way that we want to go? Because I just could picture all different kinds of tables out there at some point. So I guess, is this some way that's going to look through there?
If I might,
Please,
Your Honor.
City Manager.
We would prefer these. This is a great sturdy table. Can't move it around the whole lot. If we were going to put a couple more tables in the Vaughn Mall, it'd probably be like these.
Okay, so this is a plan that we're going to take forward.
Yeah, I would like to have these. If you saw the other tables, they get tossed around a little bit.
Council Spear?
I guess this question would apply to other restaurants with tables on the city property. Are these different than tables that are in front of Breaking New Grounds or Popovers? Is this situation different than those? Or they still own those tables? These ones will be donated permanently?
Correct. This
Chained
is
down.
permanent. This is on actual city property. It will be for the city's use. They're not just for
The
customers.
public could use it.
The public can use it.
table.
Correct.
Is that the situation in front of Breaking New Grounds and Popovers?
Technically, people they have to be, you don't have to be a customer to sit at those tables.
Okay.
Further discussion?
Didn't I read that this is going to be cemented into the ground, too?
I'm not sure. Steve, do you want to comment on that? Is this going to be cemented into the ground?
Yes,
I'm not sure.
yes, I think it's in the newsletter.
I don't know. Steve can make that comment.
I was the one requesting these.
As the manager said, these are very rugged tables, and they will be bolted down to the concrete so that they're not moved around. The one that we had out there as a sample found its way into the parking lot one morning, so it was chained up so it wouldn't move around. But these would be anchored in place so that they wouldn't be moved around.
Thank you, Steve.
Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion pending. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Item D, acceptance of a donation to the Coalition Legal Fund from the town of Jackson in the amount of $1,000.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve and accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Item E, Safe Routes to School 2008 Grant Support Request. And the amount of the grant will vary.
It's $300,000.
It's $300,000 in total.
Grant request.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Which would be the motion would be to move and accept the recommendation of the Safe Routes to School Committee and authorize the city manager to apply for funds to the New Hampshire Department of Transportation and enter into an agreement with the New Hampshire Department of Transportation and allow the city to appropriate and expend city funds to be reimbursed by NHDOT. And that's the suggested motion that we have as a recommendation. Do we have anyone who
Honor,
cares to make that motion?
I'd be happy to make that motion.
Our member from the Safe Routes to School Committee, Council Reynolds, he has made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Discussion. Council Dwyer, Council Smith.
It would be great to be able to have some explanation of priorities, as well as the feasibility, since the initial grants were more limited in dollars, the feasibility of actually obtaining this much money, or whether this is a wish list, just to understand what.
Certainly, and I'll ask Debbie Finnegan, who staffs that committee, to come forward and talk to the issue.
Good evening. Probably a few weeks ago, we met and discussed what projects they would like me to put forth in the grant, and these were the items that the committee decided were the appropriate ones. To be honest, the state, I will give you the state's recommendation, which is the first one, which is a travel plan. Part of the grant includes a travel plan, and what the travel plan basically is that each school has different routes in which the kids get there. So what are the issues on those routes so that we can get more kids biking and walking to school? So that's really the number one priority, really, for the committee as well as the state, because they really want to know what our plan is. And we're working hard on getting a plan, but we need some help. So that's what this first item is for. And the rest are items that we feel will be beneficial in terms of to keep going in the process of getting some more just engineering, getting some construction out there so people see that we're actually doing something. Some incentives, say for New Franklin, this is not an incentive, but for engineering and enforcement, getting some flashing school zone signs with radar capability at New Franklin School. As we all know, it comes out at the highway and doesn't meet warrant for a signal coming out of the driveway, but we thought maybe if people knew how fast they were going and were really clued in that they're really going through a school zone, even though it really doesn't look like it, as you know, as well as the items we're doing on Woodbury Avenue to decrease the speed. I found out after multiple discussions with John Corrigan, who is the state's representative on this project, that the maximum amount of money you can ask for per project is $100,000. So we didn't understand that the first go round, and after sitting through presentations, we realized, and after actually that direct question, he said, "Oh, it's up to $100,000 per project, not total." So we may not get everything on this list, but we'd like to ask for everything on this list, knowing that the first thing on the list is probably the thing they'll definitely give us, because that's what they want the statewide to do. So.
Great.
Does that answer everything? I hope
Yes,
so.
the per project was the piece that I was missing. I think it's a great list. I'm glad you can apply for all of it.
We may not get it all. We hope we do. But, yeah, I was missing that piece last time, too, as we all were.
Thank you, Deb. Council Dwyer. Council Smith.
Thank you, though. That kind of answers my question, too, because when we went through this first time, we were under the understanding it was 100,000.
Right.
So, thank you for getting that clarified for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Reynolds.
Yeah, and finally on that point, I think just all the work that the committee's done, really good work, really appreciate it, and they met in subcommittee and things like that. And even if we don't get, the full 300,000, I think it's a very valuable process that was gone through. If we don't get all of it, then we'll have the list for going forward. And I think the trends at the national level are only for more funding to be coming this way, more funding to be being made available at the state level, down to the local level, for alternatives to roadways and cars. There's discussion, my colleagues at the national level, for the next highway bill to be called Green T, Transportation Efficiency Act. Green T, they've gotten all these clever names for the last 15 years. And so this one, again, so if we put the marker in, we don't get 300,000 this time, we'll have our stuff in the hopper and more likely to get next time.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor duly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Now we bypass mercifully for this evening, given that budget season is upon us, consideration of resolutions and ordinances. We move to the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda. The motion in each case is to refer it to the city manager with power, so that's which we'll be moving. First is a letter from Dick Samuels of Water Country requesting the permission to hold City Employee Day at Water Country on June 14th, 11:30 to 6, with a rain date of June 15th. You are all city employees and are welcome. The next is renewal of sidewalk obstruction license with no changes from last year for Springer's 1A frame sign. Request, finally, item C, from Daniel Fenderson for the subway requesting permission for a sidewalk obstruction license to place 1A frame sign in front of his establishment. We have a motion to adopt the consent agenda. If you wish to pick something out, please say so.
Move to accept.
We have a motion to accept. We have a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Item 10, A, presentations and consideration of written communications and petitions. A letter from Chris Sterndale of the Crossroads House requesting the use of the city's Greenleaf Recreation Center property for parking purposes during the reconstruction of Crossroads House. We'll have the city manager speak to that, and then we'll entertain a motion. City manager?
Yes, Your Honor. What I'd like to ask the city council to do, if they agree with this temporary parking arrangement, is to authorize me to enter into a license with them, because I think it's important to memorialize it, have the city attorney's office, dealing with insurance, dealing with who can park there, dealing with how we can ask people to leave if they're not complying with the license. So I would ask that if you do feel comfortable with this, that a license be put into effect for this temporary parking arrangement.
City manager has indicated his intention, geared certainly at construction management, and I think we understand why and have been presented information in the past on that. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Council Flayberg, then Councilor Smith.
I happen to be a person that uses the Greenleaf facility a lot to various groups that I'm involved with, and the only request that I would make is that they don't park right in front of the building. One of the groups is the Friends Project, which is a group of disabled people. So, it's important to be able to get those.
When does that meet, Councilor?
Well,
Typically?
they use it every Tuesday afternoon, every Thursday afternoon, and twice a month on Friday nights.
Okay, then we will certainly make that note.
No, I'm sorry, it's Monday and Thursday afternoon and Friday nights. So, and I don't know if other groups, it's a busy building. I mean, there are groups in there a lot. So that's the only request that I would make, that the accessibility of the building for those people is not obstructed.
That would be within our grant of power to him. I think the city manager will just say that he's noted that, and that he will check on organizations.
And that's why we're going to write a license, because what I'd like to do is have the way the license is framed, if we do run into problems, I'd like to know.
Okay. Thank you. Good point. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I guess my concerns are along the same lines, is that how would these spaces hurt the operation of the building, as well as has the rec board made a motion on this, or has it gone through them to see how they feel about it?
I'm not sure. I can check on that, but I did talk to Russ, and because of the business hours, the way there will be staff primarily, well, it will be staff, and it will be during business hours and weekdays only. So I suspect it will be, and we will actually memorialize that in the license. And what I will do is I'll talk to Public Works about actually putting an area where they can park. We'll put a little plan on, just like we do here with the farmers market. But I will put that on, and I will check to see if the rec board has reviewed this.
Okay, and then a report back on that if we could?
Well, okay, sure, but.
Or would that hold up what you're attempting to do?
I mean, I'll tell you I don't know if the rec board has looked at it or not, to be honest with you. If you want to table it, we can do that, and I can get back to the next meeting.
Do they have time in their schedule if we table it for a report back?
I don't think so. I think we need to move forward on it. I mean, what we'll do is I'll talk to Russ about talking to people about the license. So within the license, for example, as Councilor Clayberg has mentioned, their concerns with the afternoons for the Friends program. What we need to do is we need to sit down with them and specifically know how many, how often they're going to need the 30 spaces and where we're going to put them.
Okay, and again, for clarification, these are just for their employees.
Just for their employees, and we'll write it in such a way as to do that. And we'll write it in such a way as we'll have the right to get out of it within 48 hours' notice.
Okay.
If nobody has objection to that.
I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Smith. Additional comment or consideration? Hearing none. We have a motion pending. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Next, we move to item B, under presentation and consideration of written communications and petitions, a letter from Peter Ames of the American Cancer Society requesting permission to hold a healthcare access event on Monday, May 19th at the Vaughan Mall from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. and to park the Fight Back Express at the Worth lot.
Your Honor, if I might, this was another item of people wanting to actually use Market Square for this event, and we convinced them to go over to the Vaughan Mall and to park the bus. And what we'll try to do is, I've talked to John Fredericks about parking the bus close to Vaughan Mall, see if we can fit it in there and work in that direction.
Okay, we have, we do need a motion. Did somebody make a motion?
No.
No,
So
no.
moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
So moved.
We have a second. Discussion. Council Smith.
Another one. Is this something we should discuss also with the parking committee, or are they paying for the parking meters during those times?
We
or
didn't
are
ask them to
waiving
pay
those
for the
fees?
parking meters, but you could certainly ask. It is a charitable event. Certainly, we could add that to this motion. The reason that we didn't bring it to the parking committee, because ultimately it would have to come back to the city council anyways, and we put it forward. It's a pretty straightforward request. We want to get them in, they'll be working at the Vaughan Mall for their presentation point, and then the bus itself hopefully will be in the Vaughan Mall itself. We're going to try to, we could probably talk about, I'm not sure, we have something this
Thursday.
week. Yeah, we can talk about it Thursday as well, because I'd like to get it as close to the Vaughan Mall and use as least amount of spaces as possible. So,
That would be great. Thank you.
Comfortable with that? Okay.
Comfortable with that.
All right. No further discussion. We have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And now, we go to item, well, let's see, it will be Roman numeral 11A4, which would be acceptance of a water line easement for Walmart. City Manager, you care to address that briefly?
it's pretty straightforward. At the June 16, 2007 Planning Board meeting, they approved the Walmart expansion on Lafayette Road. As a condition of approval, Walmart was required to construct a new public water line and grant the easement to the city. A new water line has been constructed and an easement deed prepared. Attaches the aerial photograph showing the approximate easement area. The Department of Public Works is satisfied with the water line. The city's legal department has reviewed and approved the easement document.
I can make the motion to authorize the city manager to accept the water line easement from Walmart.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have discussion? Council Kennedy.
When we do these water lines and things like that for corporations
They
and
pay for it.
commercial, what are we doing about our sewage treatment? Is there any way to think further down? I'm not saying this one, but to think further down, when we start thinking about output and increasing size in buildings, and the fact that we're going to have a huge expense in sewage treatment plants. Is there a way we can start thinking and processing how they can give us some funds maybe towards that?
If I might, Your
You
Honor.
care to address that?
This water line was paid entirely by Walmart. Okay? So that takes care of that particular portion of it. But if you were not on the council, I believe, but I can get information. In the new ordinance that was passed, there is a specific impact fee that is, there's a formula for any new facility or any facility expanding that pays into the water sewer fund to address those issues that you just spoke to.
Well, then maybe I can get a copy of that.
Sure,
That'd be
sure.
great.
Absolutely.
Matter of public record. Additional, let's see, we have, do we have a motion pending? Do we have someone else with discussion? Council? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. And we now need to establish some work session dates. City Manager?
I'm just writing.
We're at item 5. I'll read through them while he's writing. Reuse of 251 Bartlett Street, the Crick AC, would be a 6 p.m. June 2nd work session. We have a retirement system. I can't tell whether that's a work session or public hearing.
That's a work session.
September 15 at 6. And the public hearing is the Granite State Fair Tax Coalition, July 21st at 7 o'clock p.m.
That's what the recommendation is, Your Honor.
These are the recommendations. Do we have a motion to accept and have these calendared as presented?
Move to accept.
Second.
We have motion second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Next, under informational items, before I turn it back to John, even though it's his portion of the agenda, I'd like to ask him, say a few words, if you could, about the status of House Bill 1645 regarding retirement for their councilors' general information.
Right. Your Honor, I did provide each council member with a copy of the legislative bulletin from the local government center as relates to House Bill 1645. If you recall, the House bill that was passed by the House would make changes to the retirement, the municipal employees retirement system, Group 1 and 2, that would prevent a major increase for cities and towns. And I did provide earlier to you that without the bill passing in the form that the House passed it, the city of Portsmouth in fiscal 10 would probably spend an additional $1.5 million for retirement, which would mean about another 40 cents on the tax rate. The House version would have an increase that would be substantially less at about $260,000. I've discussed this matter with Senator Clark, who has indicated that there will not be any additional costs associated with this, but I am somewhat skeptical in that I've asked her to provide me with the impact as it relates to the changes as being proposed by the Senate. One of the major changes is that it would leave the retirement age for police and firefighters at age 45 and 20 years of service. Also, the amendment does not make any changes to the Board of the Trustees at the retirement system. And in additionally, the amendment also keeps the medical subsidy intact, eliminating the 8% yearly escalator clause until 2012, when a 4% yearly escalator clause would be imposed. The House version of the bill eliminated the 8% escalator after 2008 and transferred $250 million for the special account to the corpus of the pension fund. Now, without getting too detailed tonight, I think really what we need to see, and I did send a letter on behalf of the city to Senator Clark, asking that she provide what these impacts would be to the system and specifically to Portsmouth in a similar format that was made available by the local government center. And I will wait to hear from her on that. Apparently, because of the changes, and I would defer to Councilor Pantelakis, who's also state representative, this would probably end up before a conference committee if this passes the Senate. But it's one thing that has major impacts, not denying that there's certainly not good things. I mean, the House and the committees that worked on this worked long and hard, and there was a lot of good things in House Bill 1645. Obviously, the cities and towns didn't get everything they wanted, and obviously the unions didn't get everything they wanted. But this HB 1645 really moved us in a position that made the whole retirement system back on track in a very positive way. For the Senate to make these changes is disappointing, and certainly we're going to watch these very closely and cost them. I really would like to see the costs before we go too far in this, but I think it's important to note, and I did ask the mayor if he'd be willing to send a letter to Senator Clark, and we are working on that letter for the mayor. If the council's okay with that, we'll again follow up with a letter just discussing our concerns with making these changes.
And we'll keep you apprised, keep your eye on your packets and so forth as this crystallizes, and if it gets closer to a conference committee situation, we may be more vociferous. Councilor Dwyer.
I'm really pleased that you're working on that, because I think there's probably been almost no other legislative action around which this council has has felt stronger or been as unanimous. So I think that message really needs to be sent, that it really isn't a technical matter, that it goes way beyond technical, and that, as the city represented within that, and in that Senate district, I think we have the best information, the clearest picture. I think it's difficult for towns to see the picture in the same way that a city can see it because of the number of employees. And so I would ask that that be made within the letter, identifying that we are the city in District 24, and that we, and I take it that everyone feels strongly, or we can hear otherwise about this, that I can think of no other legislation that's going to affect us more. This affects us more potentially in the long run than some of the education fixes, and I think that is not, the general public is not aware of that.
Thank you, Councilor Dwyer. There's no motion pending. It's an informational item. We can continue to discuss this. We can also ask the city manager to move on if he wishes. Councilor Penelakis, my apologies for not recognizing you earlier.
Yes, I would ask you as a council to send that message to all the senators. And also, in the committee or conference, I do believe that the House side will hold strong to what they want. And it may be able to be straightened out again, but also, I'd like to tell you that we haven't voted on it yet, but the costing bill came out 539 out of the Finance Committee, and there is no longer any donor towns or anything in it.
This is on the education.
In the education.
We'll continue to monitor all of these, and the city manager's office will continue to keep us all updated. If there becomes a point in time where we need to weigh in hard and quickly, we will sort of facilitate.
And again, I would encourage council members to call Senator Clark directly.
But I think if you put that word out to all the senators there, they're going to be getting it from Manchester and a lot of other places that are cities too. And just they'll know that there's a big impact to the cities, and it's re-election time.
While we're at it, we could courtesy copy all of the chartered cities' mayors.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. This well-oiled lobbying operation continues to roll on. Now, under my name, we have an appointment to be voted. We voted for consideration last time. Tim Allison for the Economic Development Commission. So we need a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I have no reports for you this evening. We've kind of talked about what would be reports. Now, Councilor Smith, traffic and safety and parking.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to accept our minutes from our April 10th meeting.
Do we have a second?
Moved. Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. I think Ken can legally make the motion. That's not a legal opinion. So you've made a motion. It's been seconded. All discussion, Ken?
Unless anyone has any particular questions, there's nothing in here that's going to require an ordinance change.
Okay. Hearing that, everyone's reviewed their package. We'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Parking Committee.
Parking Committee, we just had one item on here, really, but I'd like to make the motion to accept our minutes from April 10th from Parking Committee.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Discussion.
And if there's anything on here, the only one item on there was just to have a 1 15-minute space at the end of Bow Street to assist a new bank that's down there.
Okay.
So if anyone has anything.
Thank you for the explanation. We've heard it. It's on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We now move to miscellaneous. I'll just remind the council that we have a meeting the 12th, which will be the reconvened public hearing, and we have a meeting the 14th, which is the final budget, euphemistically referred to as the final budget review. Will give us an opportunity to deal with the results of the reconvened budget hearing and what we've already heard from the various departments. And then finally, on May 19th, an additional city council meeting. So that's the coming attractions for the month of May.
What time do those meetings start?
Yep, let's.
The public hearing will be at 7 p.m. The work session is at 6:30. So Monday night will be 7 o'clock, and Wednesday night will be 6:30.
And the following Monday is 7?
Regular council meeting, and depending on what the mayor asks, or the city council members might ask to put on the agenda, it could start earlier with a work session or non-public.
And we'll have to see. Additional, well, that's it for miscellaneous for me. Anyone, anything further? Councilor Reynolds?
Your Honor, I have an informational item and then a motion with apologies to the council. The informational item is that National Bike to Work Week is next week, May 14th through 18th. And so that means that National Bike and Walk to School and Work Day is Friday, the 18th. And I think sometimes what happens when events happen year after year, that the folks behind them get a little casual and they forget. And maybe there might have been a mix-up too this year as to the date. But in past years, you know, we've had a proclamation and we've had a letter requesting that the city manager, you know, work with Sabre to effect a sort of a bike to work day affair in Market Square. And I'm actually not quite sure if that's necessary this year, because last year the folks worked with Popovers to sort of work with them, and they already have the sidewalk obstruction license for the tables and the chairs in front of Popovers. So that may be what's going on, but I didn't want to miss it in case it's necessary. So again, with apologies to the council, not really my omission, but someone else's, but I want to make a motion to authorize the city manager to, you know, with power to work with Sabre to effect the Market Square Day annual Bike to Work event in Market Square. It's where they have bagels and handouts and things, and just it's sort of a gathering place. And I know that in past years they've done a few locations around the city, one at Pease. So the idea is to have a sort of a day where people are encouraged particularly to try it, give it a try. And there's some routes and some gathering points. And so Market Square has always been one of those. So I'd like to make that motion.
We have a motion to refer that to the city manager with power. Do we have a second?
Second.
City manager, do you care to comment?
No, well, if you can contact them, if they have a specific plan in mind, could you ask them to give me a call?
Absolutely.
And if they need a proclamation net or anything, just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we have a motion duly second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. We now come to the item Roman numeral 13.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.